Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am Mercedes and this is the Frugal Life with Mercedes. So we are seeing it all over the news. We're probably talking about it with our friends, families, coworkers, loved ones, that times are so tough. People are struggling now. And I'm here to tell you this is not new. So if you are under the illusion that people are just now struggling to pay their bills or just now concerned that they won't be able to retire, this has been going on for a really long time. Now, essentially, no matter how good the economy is, whether or not we had or hadn't been in a recession, depression, pandemic, whatever it is, there's always going to be people that are struggling. And some of that is lack of education, lack of opportunity, socio-economical backgrounds, ethnic groups, gender, sexual orientation. There are so many reasons and factors why a specific person would be struggling. The other thing I think people don't always take into consideration is, I've talked about this before, if your parents were poor, if you lived in poverty as a child, statistically, you will live in poverty and your children will live in poverty. And it takes somebody to break that cycle. But some people don't know how, or they don't see anything wrong with the current situation. That's the other thing too, is that people are like, well, my whole family's always been poor, my whole family's always had debt, my whole family this, my whole family that. And they either don't know or don't understand that it doesn't have to be that way. And until somebody gets out of a situation, they can't really look back. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like when you're in a toxic relationship and then it finally ends and you're like, oh my gosh, why did I put up with all that? It's like when you're in it, it's hard to see how bad or how inappropriate, how toxic, how not good a situation is until you're out of it. And there's the cycle of poverty. And so I just think it's I don't even want to use the word funny or amusing, but I find it super interesting that there's a lot of people that are saying people are struggling now. And it's like, no, they have been. So I was saying that, like, there's always going to be people, no matter what's going on, that are going to struggle. But of course, when you have a depression, a recession, some sort of pandemic, different things going on with the economy or global trade systems, anything like that, of course it is going to affect people and how they make money and how they take care of themselves, definitely. But I do want to point out that a lot of people and a lot of industries have never recovered from the '08 financial crash. That was almost 20 years ago. And so many people lost their homes and lost their jobs. And some people took such a big hit that they have never been able to recover. And what do I mean by that? They never were able to get back to the financial security that they had pre-08. And that also kind of brings up the housing and all that kind of stuff. I do want to point out for younger generations, I am a millennial, but like millennials and Gen Zers specifically, if you are watching, part of the reason that we cannot buy houses, which there's a lot of reasons why we can't, before early 2000s, banks were giving people loans that could not afford those loans. And that is why the '08 housing crash happened. So when you go to buy a house, they do check your debt to income ratio and make sure that they're not too out of whack. Because if you've got a whole bunch of debt already and you only make this much and it barely covers the debt you already have, they cannot give you a loan for a house. But pre-08, they were doing that. So there were people that had no business buying a house. Like, they shouldn't have even been looking at a house, and they knew that they couldn't afford a house, but they were getting approved for loans. And that's why that whole thing happened. And it's a little bit more, my AC turned off, so now I feel like I'm yelling. Give me a second to adjust. So it's a lot more complicated than that, the housing crash of 08, but that's like a small little like cliff notes of it. There was some corrupt banking practices and some stuff with like big business and big banks and all that kind of stuff. But essentially, if you want to get down to like the heart of it, banks were approving people for loans that they knew the people could not pay, and that's why so many people lost their houses. Now, that still happens today, but there's new regulations that don't allow that to happen. So I'm not saying everybody, but there are a lot of people that bought a house in the early 2000s that if they went, let's say they went to go buy a house today and they were in those same financial circumstances they were in the early 2000s, they wouldn't get approved. So you got people sitting in a house and they've been in a house for 20 years or whatever that bought in the early 2000s. And if they went today to a bank to get a loan for a house and had the exact same debt to income ratio that they did in the early 2000s, they would not get approved. Now, there are still people that are approved for loans today that can't necessarily afford it, but their debt to income ratio is acceptable. And I don't remember exactly what the percentage is, but you guys know what I mean. It's like if it depends on how much debt you have and how much money you make. And so those are all things to like consider. Do you know what I mean? And so it makes it really hard when you're sitting there and you're like, well, why can't I have this? Why can't I have that? And I know that there is some thought behind it that it's like we want what our parents have and we want to do better than them. But for me, I want to be able to do just the things that my parents were able to do. And I'm good with money and I am a saver, but you can't magically make housing prices go down and you can't make things more affordable. And yes, things are more expensive now than they were, let's say, in the early 2000s. But even with that like huge price increase because of inflation and because of time, it's still like the debt to income ratio thing. Do you know what I mean? And it is much harder to buy houses now because people, the prices of them are just insane. So these were just some things that I was thinking about, and I'm not belittling anybody that feels like they're struggling now and maybe didn't feel like they were before, but I am encouraging you guys to start paying attention because people have been struggling. There are people that have literally never bounced back from the 08 crash, and there are people that have never really bounced back from all the stuff that was going on with the pandemic. And I'm not talking health-wise, I'm talking about financially, like losing their job or, a lot of people went into a lot of debt during the pandemic because for different reasons. So people are struggling. That is 100% true. But don't forget that people have been. And this is why I'm always preaching. It doesn't matter what's going on, whether you are in good economic times in your household or not, whether there's good economic times outside your house, you need to live the same no matter what. So have a certain amount of money that you're putting aside every month. Have no debt or the least amount of debt as possible. Pick up extra shifts at work. Have a side business. Have some way to have another source of income in case you lose your job. Have cheap meals that you know how to cook. Coupon. Go to discount stores. Own less material items. You have to, I don't want any of you to feel like you're not living, because that's another complaint, is like, well, if I cut all that out, then I'm not living. And it's like, yeah, but nobody needs to be going to Starbucks twice a day, but they have nothing saved. Do you know what I mean? And if you just kind of change your mindset all the time, then you are prepared no matter what is going on. So preparedness. So times are tough. That is 100% true. But times have been tough. And it's time for people to open their eyes and see what's really going on. Because if times are tough for even a percentage of the population, then you need to be aware of that, because that just means that it's eventually going to come to your household. And remember, we're not trying to be fearful. We're trying to plan and plot and strategize to put us and our families in the best situation possible. Okay, guys? So thank you so much for watching. Please consider subscribing to my channel. If you did not know, I have an Instagram, The Frugal Life with Mercedes. Until next time, guys, bye.